Hey guys, it's Drac and it's time for another exciting Nerf versus video where I give you the facts and my opinion, then we break it down, and ultimately I wind up asking you guys what you think is the better blaster. So today we have two BoomCo blasters, the FlipBow and the BreakFlip. Now the primary difference between these two is what I will talk about first. The FlipBow primes up and settles down, and then the BreakFlip primes down and then flips back up. Now one thing that I've noticed is that the FlipBow does not seem to have a locking mechanism for depriming. You can prime the blaster, fire, and deprime as often as you like, whereas the BreakFlip will only let you deprime when it has a clipazine inside. So with that said, that is a small difference. We will talk about the aesthetics, and in talking about them, we'll talk about how they're not really that different. At least in these two metallic models, they're virtually the same. I always think that these blasters have a very dead orbity feel, where they are white with the metallic and then a black and gray background, or trim rather, and I think that they look great. They have a really cool feel to them. They look very spacey, very futuristic, and very neat. Before we go much further, let me talk about my FlipBow. Does not have the bow arms on it. Of course, if you've seen my stock review, it has arms that come out and then back in and work with this priming mechanism. Doesn't always work as smoothly as you want it to, but it's a cool feature. I run mine without it because I like it being a very streamlined lateral blaster. Now, the grips on both of them leave a little bit to be desired, while the FlipBow I think has a much better grip in that you can choke up on it multiple ways, and it has a handguard so that you can kinda fall into it as you will. The BreakFlip does not and requires a little bit more force to keep a firm grip on it. Both grips really dig into the meatus of your hand after a while just using them, especially one-handed. Priming and flipping through them really starts to grind into that natural groove on your hand. So neither is what I would call particularly comfortable, but if I had to give it to one, I would give it to the FlipBow. I just like the enclosed hand guard. I think that it makes for a better system. Now, overall ergonomics, the FlipBow seems like it was definitely designed to be one-hand wielded, in that you prime it and fire it, and it doesn't have necessarily an intuitive foregrip. Again, when you are locked and loaded on the FlipBow, you could come low, but then your clipazine will come through. I guess you could hold it here as long as you don't have the bow arms on. Holding it here like a retaliator is kind of ridiculous since you won't be priming through that way. Now, on the BreakFlip, on the other hand, it has a rather comfortable foregrip on it, and I think that that's an interesting feature worth talking about, where this foregrip is solid, it's an excellent size, and works reasonably well. That said, since it is not a streamlined system, it tends to pull if I don't grip it very hard, especially when it's full with a clipazine. Similarly, it tilts this way at the back end of that. So that's not an issue with the FlipBow, since you're constantly priming through along that line of force. It gets heavier as it goes down, and I think that's fine, but I do like that it is an inline system and it is symmetrical at all times. That makes me happy, how I like to use the toy. So, what does that leave us with to talk about? We can talk about the price, which I think is noteworthy. Oh, wait, one last thing. The rails on the BreakFlip are useful if you choose to use this product, the Smart Stick targets with the photo paper. A lot of people play with these in such a way that you attach a giant shield with that photo paper on it and fire towards your opponent's blaster as opposed to firing towards their other targets and or body. I think that that's an interesting way to play, and the BreakFlip allows you to do that if you wanted to attach something that has plenty of rail space up here. That rail space is noticeably absent from the FlipBow. So if that is an important feature to you, you're not going to get it on the bow flipping action side of the package. Now, the one thing that I've learned from owning both of these blasters is that if you are going to dual wield them, you need to make a choice and stick with it, because I find that I get confused. Sometimes I try and throw down my FlipBow, or I'll come up, and I guess that worked okay, but if you come straight up, you're going to wind up with a limp BreakFlip trying to dual wield them. Oh wow, nobody turned that into a GIF. That looks ridiculous. But it is kind of fun. Anyhow, Neither blaster slam fires well. Both have the feature, but neither one works very well. Now, in terms of their aiming and performance, they're relatively similar. They shoot about the same, and in addition to having the same range and accuracy, neither is necessarily ergonomic enough for super duper steady shots. I find that I am much more accurate with the FlipBow as opposed to the BreakFlip, just because coming up in to my readied position is wonky for me. It's much easier to drop into it for me with either hand that I'm using. So that's my opinion. I do want to talk about the price. On average, depending upon where you buy it and what sale is going on, the FlipBow seems to be $5 more expensive. So while my personal opinion is that the FlipBow is the better blaster, the BreakFlip is in fact cheaper. So if that is your primary, I guess, factor in your purchase, then you might want to consider picking up a BreakFlip instead of a FlipBow, sacrificing a little bit of ergonomics and form factor, and then you can buy an extra BoomCo clipazine. Those go on sale all the time, especially the ammunition refill, which I think is pretty important, since BoomCo ammunition, in my experience, pretty fragile stuff. But that's my versus, where we compare the blasters, and of course what's most important to me is getting your thoughts as to which one you would prefer using in a war, which one you would prefer using overall, and then of course no opinion is even worth sharing unless you have a reason. So don't just tell me which one you like more, tell me why you like it more. That's the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to reading your comments for a few days to come.